So, welcome along. I hope you're having a fantastic Successbury festival. I wanted to get my festival gear on, but because I'm old, I don't really have any festival gear. But that said, got the obligatory guitar in the corner there. Anyway, my name is Patrick Grant. You can call me Paddy. I'm a solicitor. I used to work in criminal law from about 2011 till 2014-15. Then I got into teaching and legal innovation when I was doing some guest lecturing at the University of Malaga. I work with Ultra, who are the ULaw Legal Tech Research Academy, and we set the Ultra up about 3 years ago now to deal with the changes in the profession that I'm going to talk to you about today. So over the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, what I'm going to talk about is what it means to be a 21st century lawyer. And what we're going to cover are all these sort of new buzzwords that you're going to see, like legal tech, innovation, why the profession's changing, and what skills you as first year, second year, third year students can gain to basically start getting yourself ahead in all of this. So the first thing really to do, and if you could go on to the first slide, please, James, is to introduce some of these key terms that we're going to talk about. Legal tech is the biggest term that you're going to see at the moment. It's a massive buzzword and it's become quite a fashion within law. But what does it actually mean? Well, the truth is it can mean almost anything, from lawyers with laptops and mobile phones all the way to our friend on the right-hand side over there, robots, artificial intelligence, really complicated software. But in truth, what I want you to think of legal tech as is using software or tech to streamline the business of law. And you can probably see that already in context. You know, having a mobile phone as a lawyer, having access to a laptop, access to the internet, streamlines the way we do our job. It makes things quicker, more efficient, easier. Equally, having AI, having chatbots also make it quicker too. So what I'm going to do, if we've gone to the next slide, please, James, is I'm just going to talk you through, and if you just click all the way through, actually, that would be probably easier so everything comes up. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk to you about, oh no, if you go back, sorry, that's my fault. What we're going to do is, yeah, there we go, perfect. We're going to talk about AI very quickly, because artificial intelligence is really at the heart of the legal tech revolution. And the first point on the slide is really that the good news. AI appears to mimic human thinking. We get asked all the time, are robots going to take over our jobs? And the truth is they're not, because AI is only as good as the person that trains it. And because it mimics or it copies the way that humans think, it's never going to replace humans, which is great news. The other good news, though, is it's got the potential to radically change the legal industry. And that, if you just click another twice, I think, James, that is because AI can not only read documents, understand documents, and summarize documents, but it can do so at the blink of an eye. And it can save us, as we're going to discuss in a few slides' time, a huge amount of time, effort, and money. And very quickly, what I'm going to do is just talk you through a few examples of where we use artificial intelligence in law. So, first of all, practice management automation. When you are all trainee solicitors and solicitors in 3, 4, 5 years' time, you're going to be doing work on files. And when you're doing work on files, you tend to time record, because that's how we build clients at the moment. And many of the tools that are built into billing and wider practice management are a form of artificial intelligence. So a great example, you're sat doing your work, you do maybe 20 minutes work on a file, then you move on to a different file. The computer, without your input, will record how much time you and other colleagues have spent. And at the end of the month, it'll just send the client a bill for the relevant time period, totally automatically. Another good example of artificial intelligence is predictive coding. And it's a really advanced form of AI, but it refers basically to technology-assisted review. So you can use it to speed up e-disclosure with documents and such. It's basically a search algorithm, and it learns how to rank the relevance of documents in a big bundle based on an initial training session with a lawyer. So again, we've got this human influence. So the lawyer will tweak the algorithm to find the documents that he thinks are most, or she thinks are most important for the case. And it's then basically let loose on tens of thousands of documents to determine exactly which the most important ones are for, let's say, the purposes of disclosure. The next area that's really interesting in AI is document assembly. So lots of times that you go and see a lawyer to get a contract, let's say, or a rental contract for a house, the lawyer's going to ask you a series of questions and basically fill out the blanks on a template. So with AI, you can actually do that without going to see a lawyer. And moreover, what's brilliant about AI is that you can train it to read through contracts to see if there's any problems. The next area is something that as law students, you're going to get really used to using, and that's legal research. So there's three really big legal information resources online: LexisNexis, Practical Law, and Westlaw. And they're constantly working to improve their search algorithms to help lawyers find the most relevant material that sort of pertains to their case. And what's interesting is that some AI tools even go a step further than that, not just finding cases, but they can actually help you to form a case strategy based on previous cases. So, for example, there's a company in the United States at the moment that have been recording decisions of judges for years and years and years, and the arguments that the decisions are based on. And the idea is that you can predict what arguments will work in which courts in front of which judges, which is fascinating and dangerous all in one go. Because if there's this idea that if judges think they're going to be predictable, they might make a different decision. And that's why, for example, in France, this kind of software is banned. The final area that we use AI in at the moment is DIY law, or do-it-yourself law. And it links back to a couple of things we've already spoken about. And there's also chatbots too. So there's services that you can go online and have a look at, such as rocketlawyer.com, which apply elements of document assembly to help individuals and businesses to form their own legal documents, like I said earlier, without ever having to go and see a lawyer. And it's worth a try. If you go onto rocketlawyer.com, you can have a look and sort of start building up your own contracts and wills and various other things. Another great use is chatbots. So you can train a chatbot, you can train the AI to ask questions and sort of filter down in a funnel to what the problem is and to help solve it. And one of the best examples of this is a young man called Josh Browder, who has a website called Do Not Pay. And Do Not Pay started as a way to appeal parking tickets. So it would ask you a series of questions. You would answer the questions based on what had happened, where you'd been, and eventually it would prepare for you a document to send off to appeal your parking fine. And in fact, it was hugely successful. It's gone on Do Not Pay, and again, it's worth having a look at, to actually be able to solve, according to the creators, up to 1,000 different legal problems, including getting error compensation when your flight's late, and not just starting off small claims. And so it's not just appealing parking fines. So there's some fascinating uses that AI and legal tech have, but just remember, think of it as things that just help us to make our lives as lawyers a bit easier. Next slide, please, James. The other area that we're going to have a look at is legal innovation. And broadly speaking, innovation, again, it's a buzzword. Everybody, you hear it everywhere, but let's take it and keep it nice and simple. Innovation is the introduction of something new. And if we just click 3 more times, please, James, there's broadly speaking 3 different types of innovation: incremental, radical, and disruptive. And we'll have a quick chat about those now. So incremental innovation is just innovating, making something new, something better, something more efficient, but little by little. And if you want to see a good example of incrementals, innovation little by little, you look at the big brands. There's a reason that brands such as Coca-Cola or the big supermarkets are always at the top of the list and always increasing their profits. And that's because they're always innovating. They're always looking at new ways to improve their service, new ways to improve their customer relations, new ways to improve their products. So when you see Coca-Cola bringing out healthy soft drinks, it's a sign of the times, and it shows that they are always looking to incrementally improve their offerings. The next type of innovation, though, is radical innovation, and that's using something completely new to solve a problem. So one of the best examples of this is Netflix, not in its current guise that you probably know it about, but When it first came out in, I think, 2007, 2008, it was a online DVD rental. So, you know, in the early 2000s and way before, if you wanted to watch a movie on a Friday night, you'd have to go down to Blockbusters or a video store, spend 25 minutes looking for the right video, probably have some kind of argument with your significant other or your partner about what you were going to watch. But when Netflix came out, you could just go online, tick the DVDs that you wanted, they'd be sent to you in the post, you'd pay for them, get them, and once you'd watched them, you'd post them back. And it was a radical innovation because it solved a problem, and it was a complete game changer as well, because it's the reason that we don't see video rental stores or Blockbusters anymore on every street corner, and we certainly used to. The final area is disruptive innovation, and that's all about using a tool or a technology to massively affect the way that an industry works. And probably for the purposes of what we're talking about today, the best example of that is the internet. When the internet came out, it changed the way that society interacts with business totally. It was disruptive. It's put businesses out of business, basically, and it's brought about new companies, new offerings that we're going to discuss in a little while. But the next question, I suppose, is how do you innovate? Well, next, if you just click a couple of clicks, please, James, just get the rest of this slide up. The way we innovate is by looking at a process. I don't know why that's gone over there. Oh, well, that's fine. It's by looking at a process and working out how we can improve it. So we call that process mapping. And often that can start with just getting a few post-it notes and sticking them on a wall, setting out the steps that you take in a process, taking a step back and going, well, how can I improve the customer's journey, or how can I improve our offering through those steps to make it quicker, easier, more efficient, more cost effective? And a good example of that is what you can see here with those steps and results. This would be document analysis 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, if you had a big case in a law firm, all the junior lawyers would be called into a big room, and a huge boxes of lever arc files full of documents would arrive by courier, usually in a van, and everyone would be going, oh, here we go. And you'd sit there and you'd read through the files, maybe 15, 20 of you, identify the issues and produce a report or an evidence bundle. You just click twice more, please, James. But if you take a look at that realistically, it's not just expensive, it's not even time effective, because we're getting junior lawyers who could be going out and earning money for the business to sit in a room and read through files. So we're spending money and we're using up their time. So it's not efficient. Step forward artificial intelligence, and as we just spoke about, and what we can do is just feed those files through a computer, and the computer will produce the report or the evidence bundle. We've saved an absolute ton of cash and a ton of time as well. So that's innovation. It's the introduction of something new, something that's going to make our business quicker, easier, better for customers, better for us, more efficient, okay? And it's a basic example. So now we know these sort of key terms, legal tech and legal innovation. What then, or why are these affecting the legal industry? Why has these changes in law come about? Next slide, please, James. They've come about for broadly two reasons. And if you just click a few times, stay on this slide, but just get all the information up, it'll be a bit easier. Broadly speaking, the legal industry is hugely traditional. That's the reason that barristers still stick on their hat and gown when they go to court. But a lot of what we do as lawyers is very much based on how we've been lawyers for the last 100 years. And as you guys know already, traditionally lawyers are split into solicitors and barristers. And the big difference is really that barristers tend to work in courts, whereas solicitors tend to work in offices. But there's a few crossovers these days in any case. But solicitors work in law firms, and you can see law firms on the slide tend to work as a pyramid. Lots of junior lawyers who do all the tasks, senior lawyers on top, a few less senior lawyers who tend to deal with the sort of management of the juniors and probably giving advice in the more niche areas. And at the top are the partners who run the firm and take on all the risk. And that's been the same for years. But also, we haven't just got solicitors and barristers, and this is important. We've got legal executives, notaries, licensed conveyancers, patent attorneys, trademark attorneys, costs draftsmen. There's a huge amount that makes up the legal industry, but broadly speaking, we still work on exactly the same model, and that's at the bottom there. The client goes to see their lawyer, they'll receive advice or documentation, and then they'll get a bill based on the lawyer's time. But that comes across with some criticism. Next slide, please, James. And broadly speaking, hopefully we can, there we go. So there are three big criticisms of legal services. In fact, there's more. If you Google lawyer jokes, you'll see exactly what I mean. But broadly speaking, there's three big critique of legal services. That is that it's expensive. A lot of people in the public have an idea that going to see a lawyer costs lots of money. And that's because they charge for their time, as we've seen. So if someone's charging for their time, if I'm a member of the general public, I might think that actually, you know, what's the incentive for them to go quicker if every 6 minutes they're charging me an extra 50 quid, 100 quid, 200 quid? The other big criticism of lawyers is because they're so traditional, they've been very slow to embrace technology. And if you want to think about sort of a comparison here, look at banks who've been very, very quick to embrace technology. You know, we've all got our banking apps on our phone. We don't need to go into the bank to do things. So why then does this not work with law? Well, law is going to have to catch up, and it's going to have to catch up for our second reason, which is on the next slide, please, James. The fact that society has been massively altered by technology. It's been a huge pressure point, and society has really changed in the last 20 years, as we're going to discuss. But it all starts with this idea that we call Moore's Law. Gordon Moore was the founder of Intel. Intel make all the processors in your computers. But he said that the number of transistors and resistors on a chip, a computer chip, not a potato one, doubles roughly every 2 years. And what that means is that you can see it working, because that's the reason our phones get better, quicker, lighter. Our computers get better and quicker and lighter. And it's also the reason that technology becomes cheaper and that we can all use it. And as Bill Gates, who needs no introduction, says, the truth about Moore's Law is that it makes remarkable things possible. And just to put that into perspective, 20 years ago, when I was the age of most of you who are listening, in order to do pretty much, you know, anything, you had to go and speak to people. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But since the year 2000, UK mobile phone ownership, UK home computer ownership, and UK internet connections have doubled. That means roughly 30 million people more have mobiles, PCs, and an internet connection at home than did years ago. And it's here where you start to see that its technology is not just transforming our daily lives, it's transforming the way that we interact with businesses. And it's truly remarkable. So think of your phone now. We've got the picture of the phone there. Think of all the apps on your phone and all the possibilities at your fingertips. You can transfer money across the world in seconds, communicate with anybody you like. You can consult a doctor or a vet on an app these days. You can order a pizza, a taxi to your door, set up a direct debit, do your shopping. Basically, the possibilities are absolutely endless. But 20 years ago, in order to do almost all of these things, you'd have had to go somewhere or have a conversation with somebody. Search engines, too, have a massive part to play in the changes that we're seeing in the legal industry, because most people who need a service these days will start with Google, whereas the person 20 years ago would have got a phone book out or gone to speak to a friend who might know a good lawyer. Nowadays, we're going to start with Google. And therefore, business needs to have a look at the client journey. That is, how does our client get to us when they've got a problem? So we need to have a solid website. We need to have excellent search engine optimization. And we need to advertise to familiarize our potential customers, all so that when they might need us, they know exactly where we are. And it all opens huge possibilities. Consider this for a second. In the year 2020, where we are, 3 of the biggest companies on earth are web-based. That's Amazon, Facebook, and Uber. And not only that, Uber is the biggest taxi firm on earth, but it doesn't own any taxis. It's purely web-based. It's phenomenal. The effect that society has had, or sorry, technology has had on society is, as Bill Gates says, remarkable. The final piece of the jigsaw is the tech available. Okay, so it's not just laptops, tablets, mobiles, internet connections. As we discussed, automation and AI are now capable of performing, the more mundane tasks of doing business and doing it quickly and cheaply. So as is clear, 21st century business operates in new ways, and tech's allowed us to reach more people, to make transactions and jobs quicker and more efficient. And that, broadly speaking, is why the legal industry is changing. Next slide, please, James. So the next question that you're going to ask is, what can I be doing to prepare for the future? Well, here's a few tips that I'd give you for things to read and have a look at. And the first one's a bit of reading. You can get these books in the online library. I've double checked. But Richard Susskind is a chap that in the mid-80s wrote his doctorate in artificial intelligence and law at Oxford University. He still works at Oxford University, and he's been writing books on how AI technology will affect the future of the professions for a long time. I'd thoroughly recommend his book on the future of the professions. Also, his book on the end of lawyers is worth a read, although it's rather pessimistically titled for all of us. But also the Law Society of England and Wales produced a report on the future of legal services and an introduction to law tech, which is well worth a read. If you want to watch a few videos, if you go to law.ac.uk/ultra, that's obviously our website, you'll see my colleague Simon there and Chem, who work in the Ultra branch down in Moorgate, London, doing some videos on things like the future of law firms, artificial intelligence, breaking down blockchain. But there's also TED Talks as well. In terms of learning, well, the good news is you're in the best place to do it, because the 2 most important skills for being a lawyer remain exactly the same. An excellent working knowledge of the law, okay, and all of it, how precedent works, an appreciation for the rule of law, a knowledge of criminal, corporate, all these areas. The next thing you're going to need to work on is soft skills, talking to people. Because as you probably know, you could understand everything about the law, but if you can't explain it to people, you're possibly skittled. The next 3 or 4 things are just things to look at whilst you're doing your degree. You don't need to become an expert computer programmer. It's a good idea, though, to know how computers work and to have an idea about tech and innovation. And you can do that easily by following sort of leaders in the field in legal tech and innovation on Twitter or Snapbook or Instagram. Have a look at process mapping, have a read about it. Like we say, you've now got Google, so you can just Google process mapping, learn a bit about it, how it works. If by the end of your course you get so excited about legal tech, you want to learn more, ULaw offer a MSc, a master's in legal tech as well. So there's plenty there to be getting on with. Next slide, please, James. The next slide really sort of shows us what our aim is. This is the Delta model. It comes from an American paper on sort of the future of legal practice, and it's a competency model for 21st century lawyers. And as you can see, exactly what I've been saying, at the bottom there is the foundations, a solid knowledge of the T's and your subject matter, being good at legal analysis, good at legal writing, good at legal research. And then you build up on that with personal effectiveness. And that's your soft skills, relationship management, talking to clients, working with them, dealing with them, how you communicate, your emotional intelligence. These are all things that you can develop, and making sure you're nice and resilient too. And then on the other side, it's adding this sort of third piece to the puzzle, business and operations. So learning the sort of fundamentals of a business. Basically, businesses are there to make profit. If you understand that, you're going to do very well. But also the bottom one, data and analytics, so important. Data is like the new gold. You get data from almost anywhere, and it's how you put it together, how you deal with it, useful and effective. So that's something very good to read up on and sort of work hard at. But the great news is that, you know, you're just starting out your careers in law, and the truth is that the future of legal practice is very much dependent on you guys, and it's what you, like anything, your future is exactly what you make of it. So if you can equip yourself with all of these skills, learn about it, be interested in it, you're going to do absolutely brilliantly. So listen, thank you so much for listening for the last 26 minutes or so. If you've got any questions, I'm here to answer anything you might have to ask. Best of luck and welcome to ULaw. Oh, I can see there's a question there, yeah, about that. We actually have a legal tech society at Leeds and Moorgate that you can join, legal innovation and legal tech societies that you can join, and there's plenty going on. You'll find out more about that at the Freshers Fair. And if you've got any other questions you just don't fancy asking, you can always just email either one of the team or one of the student ambassadors, and they can forward it to me, and I can do my best to help you out. Oh, Georgie, yeah, sorry, I can see your question now. How would you go about working in a law firm in the tech department? Well, there are some big law firms that actually do tech training contracts now. So Clifford Chance do a tech training contract. I think Allen Overy do a tech training contract. But you can write to them. You know, I'd always advise, if you've got an interest in this, write to them and ask them, you know, is there anything I can be doing at your firm to get a bit of work experience in tech? And they'll really appreciate that, a lot of law firms. There you go. I've got that. Yeah, they'll really appreciate that, Georgie. So if you want to work in a law firm in the tech department, have a good Google, see who does it, and just write them a letter and say, can I, you know, is there anything I can get involved in? And it will just show that you're sort of very proactive as well, which is something that law firms like. Hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, just get in touch. Brilliant. Well, if there's nothing else, guys, it's been lovely to talk to you. I think there's lots and lots and lots going on. So there's the buggy racing, which I haven't had a crack at yet, and I think there's some stuff going on the main stage too. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and have a lovely weekend.